Hi, this is Jim Nilsen of Photography Travel Tours, and I'm bringing you another tech tip here today, also in the Develop module in Lightroom. Recently I talked about the adjustment brush in Lightroom. I was working on an ocean scene out on the Washington coast, and the nice thing about that is that it was a selective edit where I could just go into a selected part of the image and work on just that area. And today I'm going to talk about another tool that's also in Lightroom, and I call it a semi-selective. It isn't totally selective where you can totally isolate something, but kind of partially. And that's the HSL panel in Lightroom, and I'm in the Develop module here. You can see here, and I've done a few edits already to this image that I took in Santorini, Greece a few years ago. I did some contrast adjustment. I boosted the contrast. I brought the highlights down. I brought the vibrance up a little bit. And I did some perspective corrections as well in here under transform. But the HSL function is right here. And HSL stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. So hue would be the hue of a color. Different shades of red here or blue. Saturation, of course, is just what it says. It would be boost the saturation, the intensity of the color. And luminance stands for the lightness or darkness of that particular color. And so the nice thing about using this panel here, the HSL panel, but more specifically actually using this little adjustment hue brush or tool, I'll actually go down to saturation and use that. So if you click on that little tool right there, what's going to happen is that if you go over into a specific area, in this case the red, and you click and drag up or down, you see I drag down, it will just target those particular colors in the image exactly. And you can see over here that the red and the orange were drugged down quite a bit. So the nice thing about using the HSL and this selective drag tool is that you're able to kind of target one particular area. It will affect other areas in the image other than this red area if there are other red areas that have similar color values. In this case, there really isn't too much there except maybe this orange. So let's just go ahead and play with that up and down. So yes, if I drag it up, you can see that the orange is also saturating, but it's pretty much leaving the rest of the image untouched. So that's why I call it semi-selective. In this case, it's fairly selective, more than semi. It is affecting this here too, but all the other areas are not being affected. So I drug that up quite a bit. I'm up to 59 on the orange and 45 on the red. Let's bring it up a little bit more. I think it can stand a little bit more. I could also go into the luminance and click the luminance adjustment and also work in dragging that up or down. And see, it's just affecting the orange and the reds. And so I'm going to bring that up a little bit and kind of brighten it. I'm also, and if I click done down here, actually if you see done in the window, it means that this HSL tool is active, and I'm going to go done. Now it's complete. I can go back into it. I'm going to go back in to the saturation. I'm going to play in the blue and just see what that does. And you can see dragging the blue dome that it is also affecting the water in the background. And as I drag the saturation up, it's also lightening, darkening this whole area. I don't know if I like that or not. I do like the saturation that it's achieving. I could try to work on the luminance, the lightness or darkness of the water, and see what happens. But if I try to drag and lighten the blue in the water, it's probably going to lighten this as well. But let's try that a little bit. And I kind of like that. I kind of like the separation between the blue here and this blue here. And I'm going to work with the saturation again a little bit and drag it up and see how I like that. I like that. One of the things to be to be aware of when you are working with the saturation and luminance and the hue on any part of an image. You can go overboard. And you especially notice it in sky. This isn't really a good example, but say if we had a sky with clouds in it, and you start going overboard, you'll really see some funky things going on around the edges of the clouds and so forth. Sky is a really good telltale sign that you are getting it right in your processing. In my opinion, you always want to have the sky look a little more natural and normal. The hue up here, let's just play with that and see what that's going to do. And I'll go into, let's just go into the white area here and see what that's going to do. As I drag that up, you see it's really changing a lot of the other areas because there is a lot of blue in this white. It's affecting the aqua and the blue areas. I don't really like what it did there. I'm going to double click in those adjustments to bring it back to 0. But let's go into the red. I'm in the hue adjustment thing here, and you see it says done down here, which means it's still active. And let's play with the red and see what that does. You can really see by playing with the red hue that it does quite a bit. And I don't necessarily like what is going on. I don't use the hue quite as much, but the hue can be kind of good to work with a color cast, a predominant color cast that you may or may not that you want to get rid of. So again, I'm going to go back to the hue area and double click on both of those adjustments to bring it back to 0. And I'm going to click Done, and I'm going to go back in history to where we started. And let's see, where is that? It's right about there, I think, is the where we started here. Let's see, let me go back and get rid of those adjustments that I did. Okay, there's pretty much the original with some adjustment that I'd already done up here in the normal dialog box. And then I'll go back up to here where I created a snapshot of what I'd done earlier. So this is the before here, before any saturation or luminance adjustment were done. And then here is with those adjustments. You can see it's quite a bit, and it was, again, a very targeted adjustment, semi-targeted adjustment. That's the HSL part of Lightroom in the Develop module. I really think it's a very useful tool, especially if you use this selective drag part. Okay, thanks a lot.